Alright lads, it is Metagoblin here, and welcome to a list of old quirky spells that once existed in the game. You might be upset about the fact that some of these were removed, or perhaps you created a shrine to Chris Metzen to thank him for removing them. Either way, let's get on with the list. Probably one of the funnest spells for a hunter would be Eyes of Beast, which allowed the hunter to control his pet to the next level. You basically became the pet, and you had access to all the pet's abilities. It was utterly mental. I have no idea why this was moved. Probably because Blizzard are completely obsessed with ability pruning and making the game more simple. But this ability did actually have some uses when it came to controlling pulls in certain encounters. Plus, it was ridiculously fun to gank low level players with a level 60 boar. Sentry Totem was a shaman ability which had some great tactical uses in Battlegrounds, but was removed before even rated Battlegrounds even a thing, which is a real shame. Basically, you could put up a totem somewhere, anywhere on the map, and see through the eyes of the totem. And for instance, you can get a good look at what was happening in the enemy base, or when the enemy team was pushing farm or something like that. It was kind of replaced by Farsight, but you can't even use Farsight in rated Battlegrounds, but it's, because it's obviously a bit overpowered. But having a totem version is less overpowered, because a totem has limited sight and can be destroyed. Firestones and Spellstones are something I miss about Warlocks back when I was new to the game and completely obsessed with weapon enchants for some reason. A Firestone was something you created and equipped in your offhand originally, until you only had to click it and apply the enchant to your weapon. It increased your fire damage with with your spells, and it also did extra fire damage when you hit it. And back then, people actually did use melee weapons as a spellcaster to just finish off mobs. It was just an extra cool thing. It's a little like rune forging, and you got this whirling piece of fire on your weapon. It looked awesome. Shadow of Death is probably one of the most remembered removed spells in World of Warcraft, because Death Knights had the ability to resurrect themselves or a friend as a ghoul for a limited amount of time. This spell could actually be making a comeback in Legion, but we'll have to find out. It was replaced by the combat raise ally. While we're dealing with DKs, there was also a spell called Corpse Explosion, which was a significant DPS increase when dealing with adds or trash. You had a spell which caused dead corpses to explode. The animation was absolutely disgusting and awesome. It's just a really cool feature. I mean, it's still a glyph in the game. You can go and check out the cosmetic value of it, but that's just not enough for me. I want it back in the game. Insect Swarm was a pretty loud and disgusting spell that druids had when you summoned a swarm of... You basically summoned a swarm of bugs, and you pester your foe and reduces hit chance. But oh my god, when a druid popped this, you could just hear this really loud, high buzzing sound. It really kind of pissed you off. It had a really cool effect. It basically simulated being surrounded by bugs. It was a really great ability. Another druid spell would be Thorns, which was a buff which reflected damage to your enemy. Tanks used to love this for the threat generation that it provided. You can actually still get it on certain pets as a hunter. I think the crabs still have it. It's similar to that. But now threat generation is just so easy to generate. Back in the day when I used to be a tank in Wrath of the Lich King, it was mandatory to get a vanilla enchant on your gloves to increase your threat generation by 2% or something. And the only way to obtain it was to go through the Temple of An-Karaj. You had to actually go through an old raid to get an enchant for Wrath of the Lich King raids. Challenging Shout was another tanking ability that warriors had. And it was an AoE taunt. In fact, a few tanks had similar effects, but stuff like this was just removed when threat became such an easy thing to control. Mana Burn was another pruned ability which had some great use in Arena. A priest could effectively directly attack his foe's mana pool and leave him starved, but it was a very overpowered ability, and there's no worse feeling than being an oomed healer in Arena. But obviously I can't do a video like this without mentioning Necrotic Strike, which was the core ability of the Unholy Death Knight spec in PvP, and was the only reason why that spec was viable at all. The spec had a high amount of burst pressure with a really low uptime, but when you managed your runes and your death runes and your blood taps properly, and you could use a spell about 10 times in 10 globals, you knew you were going for a kill when that happened. The spell didn't actually directly do damage, but instead it did health absorption. They decided that health absorption wasn't useful in raiding. Obviously it isn't, so they decided to remove it. Oh, hey, by the way, people do PvP over here. I don't understand why they had to remove it. People had about 400k health in MoP, and when you skillfully used this, you could stack a health absorption stack way over 500k and hopefully retain it over 20 seconds, while your dot damage, your pet damage, and your gargoyle damage slowly choked your foe down. It just felt awesome. It was the most treasured ability for a Death Knight. The spec was a mixture of rot damage and burst damage, and it worked. It worked properly. Now Unholy is just rot damage, and it doesn't deal enough pressure to actually score any kills. But don't worry lads, it should be making a comeback in Legion. Anyway lads, thanks for watching the video. Leave your requests for the next top 10 list below. My name is the Meta Goblin, and until my next video, ciao!